Hi, Alpha, and thanks a lot. I mean, for your intervention, presentation, and talk during the conference. So, what do you think? What brought you to this network state world? I mean,
Yeah,
how you came up to this journey? I
yeah,
mean, please share your personal experience.
of course. So thank you for having me. So I was actually born in Côte d'Ivoire, West Africa. Uh, my family fled the country in 2002 when the Civil War happened. We moved to the United States, and ever since that time, I've kind of been thinking a lot about governance and how and politics and how governments kind of fail, and how to basically avoid that outcome in the future. So that kind of thinking sort of led me to kind of look at alternate governance experiments. And around 2000, 2022, I, uh, I co-founded a project called Afropolitan, which was designed around using the internet to organize a community of Africans in the diaspora to kind of build alternate societies, communities that are more productive than what you would find in urban context. So that's sort of the personal link here is like I think there's a huge opportunity to use technology beyond just consumerist and speculative ends, but actually to help reorder our societies.
Amazing. And what do you think regarding the? So you mentioned about the African diaspora.
Yeah,
Since I'm from Armenia and we also have a huge diaspora throughout
yeah,
the world. So, what do you think the diasporas can play in
yeah.
this transition? I mean, so are they going to be a major pivotal, I mean, factor, a power in this network state transition, or
Yeah,
there should be other more powerful factors affecting it?
I think that could be an incredible asset if they are actually mobilized with that context in mind. Because I was speaking to someone here at the conference who was also from the diaspora, Palestinian diaspora, and he was talking to me about how a lot of organizations came to him about how can you actually organize and coordinate enough pressure to actually get them the kinds of political rights that that community wants. And I think unfortunately the the technology stack doesn't really fully exist to do that, but you can imagine a point in the future in which it does, at which scale uh, you could see a bunch of different diasporas doing the same thing. The reason why diasporas are useful is because generally they have more assets than the domestic communities. They have more capital. They know they're more connected to people in the ranks of power that can actually do something and help them. And so if you could leverage that and actually to help not just the domestic population but also just broadly speaking expand the idea of what it means to be part of a community and a political community, then I think, yeah, it's something that would be beneficial for the entire world. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Very interesting. And, and about the power, I mean, how do you see the power question? Because you covered about the international law and all these, I mean, structures, right?
Yeah,
How do you see whether these new establishments that we call network states, free cities, or whatever way we call them, I mean,
yeah,
um, so will they need hard power in the end of the day or not? Because this is a very tricky question.
yeah.
We are talking about dealing with nation states and those very central. I mean, even authoritarian states and all this. So do you think that this establishment in the end of the day will need hard power and even like just private military companies or whatever? This is a very tricky
These are
question,
serious
but it's
questions.
yeah.
I think so. Right now, there's two sides of the conversation. There's the evolution people who think you can sort of progressively evolve the question of legitimacy and eventually get the kind of sovereignty you need without using hard power. And there's the revolution people who more align with the idea that this is the realist perspective of saying, all that matters is states and their use of violence. But when you actually do a study of how sovereignty evolves throughout history, it's always a question of space and law, right? How do you actually carve out space, geography, and essentially give it a new kind of custom and law? And law is not like something written in stone. It usually is developed from customs, from norms. So if that's the case, then there's a way in which you could normalize the idea of the network of the internet and communities, especially born from the internet, as a kind of new legitimate frontier that deserves also to have maybe not necessarily full sovereign powers, but at least some sort of devolved sovereignty that can actually make it a new kind of space for a new kind of law. Once that happens, then you can sort of talk to the behemoths, the big countries, not necessarily in equal terms, but at least they can actually consider giving you the kind of recognition that you might need to become a state. So I think that would avoid the sort of hard power question, because I don't think that is an absolute necessity. That's more of that's an Hobbesian view of power that I think is not entirely completely true.
Okay, perfect. And the last question is about the continuation actually of this power and the sovereignty. How do you see this transition, this recognition stuff? I mean, like look, we have nation states, like almost 200 nation states, 205 actually, and UN member 195 something, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see? I mean, these states and their relationship with these new establishments. Will they? Will this new establishment need a direct recognition from those nation states, or it will be an evolutionary like a process, so that in the end of the day they will start considering them, so there will be a new kind of United Nations or whatever? How do you see this international order, like the geopolitics of network states?
So this is an incredibly difficult question, but
Yes.
thank you for asking. This is the hard problem. It's not the technology side. This is the question. My personal view is that, first and foremost, the idea of nation states was born from the Treaty of Westphalia, which is very recent, 1648. So that's not that long ago. And how did it happen? It happened after a bunch of European countries blew up each other and decided, okay, we need to actually have norms around how to actually coexist. So does that mean that we need to have some kind of moment of conflict in which a new Westphalian moment? I don't think so, but I think you can sort of abstract away the principles from that event to say what that was a conference to get nation states to recognize each other's rights to sovereignty. So that's what the conference was about. If that happened once, you can sort of imagine that you can bring about a new Westphalian moment, ideally through peaceful ends. And the way to do that, I think, is simply, I think, the key really lies in the network. When you talk about network states, the network is supposed to be the source of legitimacy. If if the network, let's say there's some kind of law passed to say that the network itself is a legitimate source, it's a new space, and a legitimate source of power, then it's now smaller countries can actually, they have the international precedent to say, okay, the network is legitimate. That means this community that wants to get permission from us, we can do so if it helps our interests. And there are a lot of situations in which that can happen. You could have a community that can add to the economic productivity of the country, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it will start with these small countries first. The big countries will be the very last to grant out recognition, because frankly they don't really have to. They don't really have to consider it. But for that to happen, I think because networks are so powerful, then eventually they could they can essentially, if there's a lot of networks being born at the same time through this avenue of the small countries, you could see a roadmap to which a bigger country sort of is brought to the table to negotiate with a few of them. That's sort of how I see it. Maybe a network-based United Nations. I don't know. I don't want to go too far, but I think that's also potentially possible as a negotiating body that interfaces with different countries. So it's all very speculative. We need more thinkers to think about this problem, but this is the key question to solve.
Thanks a lot, and good luck with all your projects, and together we will build a better future, I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Okay.